Right, welcome back. No, you haven't. Don't have to
Adjust your
adjust your
set.
seat. You're set, and we haven't. You're not suddenly got a mirror image. We've thrown ourselves at curveball and changed
You're supposed to see if
changed
anyone
seats.
noticed it.
I'm sure they did. I don't know.
Mindset.
It feels very strange sitting in this side.
Well, we're talking about mindset today, right? Was it mindset?
Mindset.
How did I frame it?
What you focus on, and that regularly is
Yeah,
what we would say in chiropractic philosophy is, what you attract and what you focus on is, well, what you're focusing on regularly is what you're attracting is what you'll get. So the old thing is, if you then go and buy a blue BMW,
everywhere.
and then suddenly you see a whole lot of BMWs. Wherever you put your focus, these things are already around, but suddenly you put a focus on, and then that's all you're going to talk about or see.
Yeah, and I think this is a massively, massively powerful thing that I've learned over the last nearly 4 months of my daughter being here. Of everyone saying it's going to be like this, it's going to be like that, and then people are saying you can't really listen to anyone. Like every child is different. But if you think it's going to be, it's hard. Yes, it's been hard. It's also been easy at times. It's been rewarding at times. It's been tiring at times, and I've got no doubt it's going to continue like that, as we say. But if you think something is going to be ridiculously hard, it will be. And if we have negative thoughts, that means there's more negative thoughts and more negative thoughts. And it's trying to snap yourself out when you get into those repetitive patterns to actually have this positive thought, because we can't actually be really happy unless we've got some positive thoughts and we build on positivity.
So the key also is that where do we get that positivity from? And you're in that classic stage where you have probably the next 7 or 8 years of the most influence on your daughter,
Yeah,
because they will grow up in that energy.
I'm so aware even now, apart from when my wife says when I'm playing the PlayStation or something like, she can't be watching this. I'm like, she should like some Assassin's Creed, like some Call of Duty or something, which doesn't happen.
You're not gonna put her through Man United for the next 5 or 6 years,
Could
are
be
you?
worse. Could be Tottenham.
No, we won't go there. I'll just say that it involves a cup. That's all I'll
we, we,
say.
we allowed you to win it because we felt sorry for you. You know, even Harry Kane won a cup before you. But anyway,
Long overdue.
what were we talking about? Positivity. Let's
Positivity.
not talk about football then.
Yeah.
Either of those teams.
Yeah.
Um, but this is where I'm so aware of what I'm doing around my daughter with regards to food. The amount of times I've spoke to parents over the years and they say, why doesn't my child eat vegetables? And I said, look at your food diary. You're not eating any vegetables. And we've got to build them up from that at an early age. Okay,
Yeah.
she's not eating vegetables yet. She's still only eating milk. She must be bored of that by now. But it seems to be like she's eating so much of it. But even the way our mind is, our language,
Yeah.
all that stuff. I see my niece and
Yeah.
nephew that I think my niece is like 9 years old. Not this year, 9 years old. My nephew's like 6 years old or something. And they're just, every time you see them, they're just like my brother-in-law and sister. They're just absorbing the stuff they're doing. The
And kids
words, and
are just sponges.
yeah,
You mentioned that with food. You remind me of a situation. One of my kids, their friends was over. I was on a Sunday playing, and we had a Sunday roast. So it's called his friend little Johnny. So little Johnny's sitting there, and we sit at the table, Sunday roast, and my kids, being grown up, as food's there, you get on and graze it, because if you don't, your brother's probably going to try and pinch. So they're eating away, and I noticed little Johnny's just pushing things around the plate, and I went like, little Johnny. So I've now cooked the meal, so I'm like, this is what we're having
you
for
eat it.
meal. I'm going, Johnny, you're not quite hungry or anything? He goes, no, I don't eat this food. I said, what, like meat, vegetables, or I don't eat this kind of food. So I looked at my wife, gave a little smile, and I went, we have some fun with this one now. So I said, so what kind of food do you eat? I said, I'm sure you have this kind of food sometimes. And they were probably about 8 years, 7, 8 years old. He says, no, I only eat pizza and chips.
Wow.
So I went, well, like, only, that's the only thing you eat. I only like pizza. I only eat pizza and chips. I said, well, I like pizza. but sometimes we need to have a little piece of, but this is what this is what makes you strong. No, I don't think so. Well, Johnny didn't eat. No problem. Not going to force feed him. He's not my kid, and off we go. Parents come to pick him up. Mom picks him up at the door, and I said, "Sorry, but he might be a bit hungry because he didn't eat his tea." And she turned around and she says, "Oh, well, it depends what you served him." I said, "Well, we had a nice roast." And she goes, "Oh, he doesn't eat that kind of food." I said, "No, I know. Johnny told me." She says, "Oh, he only eats pizza and chips." And that was out of her mouth. And I went, "Where's it come from?" I still don't know, but like, who's playing who and who's leading who? And I'm like, he's growing up with that. My kids aren't perfect. They had pizza, they have things, but they've also grown up knowing that proper food involves vegetables. And I was like, that responsibility or that influence doesn't have to be like, oh, come on, you've got to
Yeah.
have a positive attitude. It doesn't have to be that force fed. It comes from the subtleties of your behaviors, your focus, and your suggestions.
Have you heard of ARFID, avoidance of restrictive food intake disorder?
No,
So it's something which is very common with autism, and you see it where it's again like that, like one or two foods, and have to have the same foods, even down to chicken nuggets only being McDonald's chicken nuggets or something. Other brands are available, apparently, but like it's very much that and I'm very much, I eat the same foods. If I go to a restaurant, I always want to have the steak. I don't want to veer off of those. And if I have the salads and stuff, I don't want no dressing on it. So I'll use ketchup and stuff. Like, I don't want them to put the dressing on. Or for example, chicken. Like, I can't have the bones in the meat. And I used to be really bad. If it had been on my plate with the bones, I couldn't eat it. And these are things where, like, ARFID is actually a condition which is getting more and more common nowadays with neurodiversity. And it's sometimes then going to be linked with the parents. And again, like, the parents then have ARFID undiagnosed. So how do we get that done? And this is one thing I worked with in like my parents group of. I've worked with a lot of parents with autistic children, and it's been as I was diagnosed with autism and ADHD, that I wanted to help more people with it. How do we then get the nutrients in there? So if you've got a child that's only eating pizza and chips, yes, absolutely, one of the ways of how we brought them up, there must have been a time where I've like got patients that can't swallow pills. Look at vagus nerve and stuff, but maybe they've just been forced to have pills
well,
and
you come back
chokes
to
and
that.
stuff.
You come back to the conundrum versus structure or medicine or condition versus environment.
Yeah,
Is this a learned behavior,
yeah.
or I've learned this or picked this up, or I've been allowed to get away with this, or is this a particular issue that you're not going to directly correct with some? You've got to work with it.
Yeah. But then when it comes to pizza, then if it was a condition as such, you'd probably think there's only one sort of pizza. Like, it can only be like, a chicken pizza or a pepperoni pizza.
Yeah.
Like, there'll be, and like even things like with raspberries, like the little hairs on the raspberries, some people get the sensory overload as such. So like there are conditions with that, but usually they'll come diagnosed with other things as well. So it's interesting when we see that, but so many times it is where parents haven't been having that diversity, because we look at genetics, right?
But a lot of people also, when they've done study in nutrition and people's food choices, a lot of people aren't in whole eating the rainbow.
No.
A lot of people have eaten, what they say, five or six main foods repetitively all the time.
So many times, like when people say, I don't want to eat the same thing, what are you going to get me to eat? I'm like, let's look at your food diary. You've had the same 7 or 8 meals repeated, maybe on slightly different days, but usually you've got a Monday night, then a Wednesday night, and a Friday night you go shopping.
I know people that Monday is spaghetti bolognese.
Yeah, and then you have your chili on a Friday, whatever it is. Like, you have the same foods, and Saturday's your fish and chip night or whatever. Like, all these aspects. You roast on a Sunday. Before we know it, we're eating the same things anyway. You have the same lunches, like the same breakfasts. So, but when we're told to eat the things, it's not the same things. It's because it's healthier. And there are a lot of times where, how do we get the nutrition in? And if it isn't a sensory thing, how do we then get the nutrition in? Is it through supplements? Is it through blending foods? Like, that's the task where.
Well, that's where you sometimes got to work with the individuals, and where is the restriction of that? Is it coming from the parents, or is it coming from the child,
And we
and
look at
going from there?
health as a genetic perspective of like 15% of our health is through genetics. 85% of it is through our lifestyle.
Yeah, yeah.
But people
And
think
you
it's the
can
other way
turn on
around.
and turn off the
Yeah. There's
genetics.
a book called Mind Made Prison. Can't remember who it's by, but in there it talks about a story of a couple are there and they've got a frying pan and they've got sausages. Rather than cutting them lengthwise, they cut them down the middle. And this woman says to her husband, "Why do you cut the sausages like that?" And he says, "I don't know. My mum done it." So they ring up his mum, and she says, "I don't know. My mum done it." So they ring up his nan, and his nan said, "Oh well, during the war, we didn't have a frying pan, or we didn't used to have a frying pan that was big enough to have a length of a sausage.
Yeah.
So we cut it so they were in half." So it had actually been passed down through the generations.
Oh,
But how
cool.
many of them beliefs have been passed down
Yeah.
from like medical things, from food things, from mindset things, from the way we behave elsewhere in public?
Yeah.
It's crazy. And then
Well,
society as well, societal norms.
well, also going on like society norms. One of the things that makes me think now is that recently, obviously, there's war and there's, the mainstream media portray a lot. And one of the philosophies that I've always held true is the yin and yang.
Yeah.
That balance between hot and cold, black and white, and it. And I've always said to a lot of patients when they're talking about, but there's all this going on, and again, all the negative stuff, and it's going back to like positive reinforcement. I said, if you're going to identify, you don't want to sweep it on the carpet and go, oh, I don't, that's negative. I don't get involved with anything negative. It's always, we've got to talk positive. That's as detrimental in itself as well. I said, but you don't need to get emotionally involved in it to a degree that is now disrupting sleep, and you're stressing about it. So you've got to identify it, but also in the whole element, there's also still a lot of good going on. There's still a lot of important things positive things that happen in society. Mainstream media don't tend to report enough on them, but if you're going to put some focus onto one, make sure also put some focus on some other aspects of life.
Yeah.
Keep it into perspective, because otherwise you do give up your control, and there's a lot more power in the negative. The dark side is a lot more powerful if you allow it than
I think
the light side.
when people say, how do we get some positivity? Practice gratitude. Practice it. If you journal 3 things every day that you're grateful for, no matter how small, or you just think about these things and you're grateful for them, that is powerful, ridiculously powerful.
Yeah, and I don't think many people really spend enough time, even if it's not on a regular routine, but just that concept of, what, I have enough, especially in the first world world. When you look at what we have, we went recently away for down to Suffolk for a week's holiday, and one of the negative comments in the TripAdvisor was that the internet connection was inconsistent. And I was like, that's such a modern day first world problem
Yeah.
and that was enough to be an issue for someone's holiday, that they didn't have a whereas other parts of the world, some perspective,
I was saying about that Colombia thing.
don't have running water.
Yeah, the Colombia aspect. When we were going to the rainforest, you're going through these little, like, essentially like shanty towns. They're just there in their little huts, but they are so happy.
Yeah.
So happy. Well, it seems on the outside they're so happy.
Well, again, depends on how we judge it by.
Yeah.
We judge it by our beliefs and our norms, and what we regard as of value, which are usually in the modern first world materialistic. We think they don't have anything. We've seen that a lot in Southern Africa. You go into really some of the rural areas, and you think that they don't have all the mod cons, but they're very grateful for what they have. And they have a stronger sense of community.
Practicing
They have a
gratitude.
stronger sense of camaraderie than they do in the big cities. So positive mental attitude, I think, is a really, really important life lesson. And as I said, it comes from many factors. Or people kind of, do you think that people can go out of their way to then, as you say, like journaling, things that they can influence that? Because a lot of people will also be influenced a bit by their childhood and those learned behaviors.
Yeah, but I mean, I pray, I read the Bible. I'm not saying about religion or anything, but I don't really journal as much now, but I practice gratitude when I pray. I'm saying 2 or 3 things that I'm grateful for.
Yeah.
Have positive affirmations. And I wasn't brought up in a Christian household. I wasn't brought up in a household that done anything like journaling or meditation or anything like that. So we can learn these things and be influenced by these things. Before I was Christian, there was a lot about manifestation and journaling and
Well, yeah.
mindfulness.
I mean, those are all tools, the manifestation and the journaling. And I've always felt, though, that where your core principles are, what is really important to you. So we've spoken about in podcasts recently of, um, you know, children or your family or your, even if it's your work, whatever is your passion, what drives you, what focus in that. I think that creates that platform to then install your positive focus, because it's very hard to be successful, whether it's in sport, whether it's in your career, whatever, without some level of optimism, without some level of positive, because you're going to have pitfalls. There are going to be challenges. There's things that don't work out. There's things that, but if you're looking at the principle of I'm learning from these, I'm bettering myself. I'm going.
You need a bigger goal, bigger purpose.
Yeah, bigger goal, bigger purpose. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are we here for? If it is just to, step on someone and do whatever and make the most money in the quickest possible, you're probably going to be, you're going to be focusing on other things, and that's what you're going to get back in return.
I had a sales call with someone, and it was looking about business coaching, and he was really pushy, and I hate pushy sales. And I said to him, "Is this the sales that you go for the people?" He said, "You've got to get people on board." I said, "That's not why I want to do this. I want to do this to help people. And yes, you're going to have your prices and everything. And if I can help them and they can't afford it, I will still try and help them and work it out," as we had the conversation about earlier. And he's like, "You're not going to make as much money." I said, "Yeah, but I'm going to be doing it for the right reasons."
Yeah.
Like, if I have a client that comes on board and they pay way beyond what they can afford, and they're really begrudging that, they're going to not be a very good client. And it's very much like, I've got to do everything I can to do it from my heart. And yes, there will be clients where we have the full aspect and we charge a good amount, because that then allows you to do charity work or something else, right? And I think there's a lot of aspect about money in the world, when actually, if we do things because we want to, money comes anyway.
Yeah. There's too much emphasis on that money. I mean, don't get me wrong, money as a concept in the modern world is important to make things done. You don't want to be in business and then can't afford to pay your rent. But has that been your sole driver, you're always going to lack. And therefore, if you're always going to lack, you're focusing on lack. So you're going to push, and your focus is on the wrong place. If your focus, for me, our focus for me is to serve.
Yeah.
We're a service. We are rich in many ways, but in a hands-on, labor-intensive career, I'm never going to be mega rich. I don't have enough hours in the day, and I don't run a big enough business. But that's not my purpose. My purpose is to position myself so that I'm available and I can help people.
Yeah.
And so that's what I mean. And that element of the secret, and then the random acts of kindness. You do things not necessarily for your own personal gain, but you're helping someone, because that person is going to go and help someone else.
Yeah.
And I believe that eventually it does come back. It comes back to you. And if you're the other way around, it'll come back to you.
I had the funny thing so my daughter was born at midnight, and I went home like 2 a.m, came back, and my wife's like, "I could have a McDonald's breakfast." Okay, so I got a McDonald's breakfast, and it feels good to buy other people's stuff, right? So I'm going through the drive-thru, and I say, "Oh, how much is the person's behind me?" And then the girl looked at me, like, "What?" "Oh, it's like £8. Can you just put that on my card as well?" "Why?" I was like, "Because it feels good." I said, "My daughter's just been born. I want to celebrate." And they're
like,
"What?"
Weirdo.
Yeah, it's like, if someone's behind you in the coffee queue, make sure they're not like 5 or 6 of them as well, because
I'm just buying for all my friends.
£60. What? But just buy those random acts of kindness. They're amazing when you do it. And no, don't do it from a place where it's going to put you like at a worse position. But eventually things come back.
Yeah.
But don't do it because they come back.
And don't do it because you're expecting something back. I had similar years ago in the petrol station, and a young lad who then lost it, couldn't have his wallet, didn't have his phone, but he had put £10 in his poor little beat up car. He was perhaps a student or so, and then he was stressing and panicking, and I was behind him, and I just then for him and said, how much do you owe? He says, and they won't let people leave until that's been paid. And I just said to the guy, I said, that's fine, I'll pay for that. And I paid for it. And he was like, oh no, I'll pay you back. And I said, listen, if you ever, I come fill up car, this is my name. You can put an envelope, that's fine. He said, but I won't be checking. They can tell me if that happens. And listen, I never got anything back, but you don't do it. You don't do it for something back there.
I would like to think that if I was in that position, that someone would do the same.
That's why I do it.
Yeah.
Because I think at some stage I'll be in a situation, and I'm hope that someone else will also think, you know what, there's a lot of good still in the world. There's a lot of positivity. I can do that without expecting anything back.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's an important message. Right, that's that for another podcast. We will see what we come up with next time.
I'll get McDonald's breakfast now. Oh, it's 3:30.
I'm going to go drive behind you.
Yeah. Don't all be looking out for my car.
Yeah.
I'm very rarely in McDonald's, surprisingly.
Right, until next time.
Until what? That's the third one.
Yeah.
Until next time.
See you then.